All right, welcome back. It's Miss Purvis again, and this is part 3 of the abridged version of The Fall of the House of Usher, and we'll be starting on page 11. So, just to recap really quickly, the Roderick Usher's sister, Lady Madeline, has passed away, and he wants her body kept in a vault, basically in the lower portion of the mansion, like a basement, for up to maybe 2 weeks before she's buried. And he has asked the unnamed narrator to help him, and he's going to. So your page looked like mine, and it is page 11. So let's start here. At the request of Usher, I personally aided him in the arrangements of the temporary entombment. The body having been encoffined, we two alone bear it to its rest. The vault in which we placed it, and which had been so long unopened that our torches half smothered in its oppressive atmosphere, gave us little opportunity for investigation. Was small, damp, and entirely without means of admission of light, lying at great depth immediately beneath that portion of the building in which was my own sleeping apartment. Okay, so right here we find out that where they're going to keep Lady Madeline's body is right below the bedroom where our unnamed narrator will be sleeping. I want you to look over to your right where it's listed as plot, but we've got this question, and it should be one of your numbered questions. What do Usher's actions after the death of his sister show about his character? And again, you're going to be a detective and determine what do his actions show you about his character. And when you're thinking about his character, think about his mental state. What does it show you about his mental state? Okay. Having deposited our mournful burden upon trestles within this region of horror, we partially turned aside the yet unscrewed lid of the coffin and looked upon the face of the tenant. Now, the face of the tenant, didn't want to highlight that much, sorry. The face of the tenant is Lady Madeline. A striking similitude between brother and sister now first arrested my attention. So the brother and sister look very much alike, and Usher, divining perhaps my thought, murmured out some few words from which I learned that the deceased and himself had been twins, and that sympathies of a scarcely intelligible nature had always existed between them. Okay, so Roderick Usher tells the unnamed narrator that he and his sister were in fact twins, and they had always had this connection between them. Our glances, however, rested not upon the dead, for we could not regard her unawed. The disease which had thus entombed the lady in the maturity of youth had left, as usual in all maladies of a strictly cataleptical character, the mockery of a faint blush upon the bosom and the face, and that suspiciously lingering smile upon the lip which is so terrible in death. We replaced and screwed down the lid, and having secured the door of iron, made our way with toil into the scarcely less gloomy apartments of the upper portion of the house. So what the unnamed narrator tells us here is that Lady Madeline, even in death, had this faint blush on her chest and her face, and almost had like a sort of half smile on her lips in death. They looked at her, then they closed the coffin lid and screwed it down and went back up into the upper portion of the house. Now, some days of bitter grief had elapsed, and so here you have a time shift. They leave Lady Madeline's body in the lower portion of the house, and several days pass, and then we pick up with this paragraph that starts with "and now." So, and now, some days of bitter grief having elapsed, an observable change came over the features of the mental disorder of my friend. His ordinary manner had vanished. His ordinary occupations were neglected or forgotten. He roamed from chamber to chamber with hurried, unequal, and objectless steps. The pallor of his countenance had assumed, if possible, a more ghastly hue, but the luminousness of his eye had utterly gone out. Okay, so the pallor of his skin. Roderick Usher, already from not being outside, had this ghostly skin tone. Okay, extremely pale skin tone. And the narrator tells us that he even looks more pale now. And the sparkle, the light that had been in his eyes, that luminousness, is gone. The once occasional huskiness of his tone was heard no more, and a tremulous quaver, as if of extreme terror, habitually characterized his utterance. So when he talked, his voice was full of fear. There were times, indeed, when I thought his unceasingly agitated mind was laboring with some oppressive secret to divulge, which he struggled for the necessary courage. At times, again, I was obliged to resolve all into the mere inexplicable vagrancies of madness, for I beheld him gazing upon vacancy for long hours, and I'm on page 12 now, in an attitude of the profoundest attention, as if listening to some imaginary sound. It is no wonder that his condition terrified, that it infected me. It felt creeping upon me by slow yet certain degrees the wild influences of his fantastic yet impressive superstitions. Okay, I want to go back up to page 11 and let's talk about these questions. All right. When it talks about the one with character, okay, the main character of the story typically change or develop as the story progresses. After Madeline's death, the narrator sees an observable change in his friend. What is this change and how does it affect him? So that's what I want you to underline in your packet, annotate in your packet. If you're using the online version, I don't think it will highlight, but it might let you make a comment. I'm not really sure. All this online stuff, we're in it together learning. We definitely have a learning curve on this, okay? And then look at the next one with suspense. All right, the question is, on this page, how does the author use details about both Madeline and Roderick to create uncertainty? Okay, so this is something you can find textual evidence. How does Poe create uncertainty with his descriptions, the details that he gives about both Madeline and Roderick on this page? All right, and then on page 12, we finished out that paragraph. And so what the narrator is telling us up to this, if you notice there's number 15 there to help us keep numbered. What we've noticed to this point is that now Roderick's fear is actually infecting the unnamed narrator. Okay? All right, moving on to this paragraph that starts with 15. It was especially upon retiring to bed late in the night of the 7th or 8th day after the placing of Lady Madeline within the donjon that I experienced the full power of such feelings. All right, so this is 7 or 8 days after she's passed away. Sleep came not near my couch. So when it says sleep came not near my couch, it means that he couldn't sleep because it came not near him. So while the hours waned and waned away, I struggled to reason. Sorry about that. I struggled to reason off the nervousness which had dominion over me. I endeavored to believe that much, if not all of what I felt, was due to the bewildering influence of the gloomy furniture of the room, of the dark and tattered draperies which, tortured into motion by the breath of a rising tempest, swayed fully to and fro upon the walls, and rustled uneasily about the decorations of the bed. But my efforts were fruitless. So he's trying to calm himself. He's trying to calm himself, and he's not having any luck. Overpowered by an intense sentiment of horror, unaccountable yet unendurable, I threw my clothes on with haste, for I felt that I should sleep no more during the night, and endeavored to arouse myself from the pitiable condition into which I had fallen by pacing rapidly to and fro through the apartment. So he's given up on being able to go to sleep, and he decides that he's going to get dressed and just pace through the apartment. And when he says apartment, it's a large bedroom, so it probably is a bedroom area, has a little sitting area, and like a restroom. I had taken but few turns in this manner when a light step on an adjoining staircase arrested my attention. So he hears a step on the staircase outside. I presently recognized it as that of Usher, Roderick Usher. In an instant afterwards, he rapped with a gentle touch at my door and entered bearing a lamp. Now we have dialogue here, okay? So the first one speaking is Roderick. "Have you not seen it?" he said abruptly, after having stared about him for some moments in silence. "You have not then seen it? But stay, you shall." Thus speaking, and having carefully shaded his lamp, he hurried to one of the casements and threw it freely open to the sun. To the storm. The impetuous fury of the entering gust nearly lifted us from our feet. It was indeed a tempestuous yet sternly beautiful night, and one wildly singular in its terror and its beauty. A whirlwind had apparently collected its force in our vicinity, but under the surfaces of the huge masses of agitated vapor, as well as all terrestrial objects immediately around us, were glowing in the unnatural light of a faintly luminous and distinctly visible gaseous exhalation which hung about and enshrouded the mansion. Now we have the unnamed narrator speaking. "You must not, you shall not behold this," said I, shuddering to Usher, as I led him with gentle violence from a window to a seat. "These appearances which bewilder you are merely electrical phenomena, not uncommon. Or it may be that they have their ghastly origin in the rank mensa of the Tarn. Let us close this casement. The air is chilling and dangerous to your frame. Here's one of your favorite romances. I will read, and you shall listen, and so we will pass away this terrible night." So what's happened here, and I'm going to stop at the top of page 13, right before where we have the number 20. I'm going to stop there. But Roderick Usher has come to the unnamed narrator's room. Neither one of them can sleep, and there's this huge storm. And our assumption is it's an electrical storm with maybe a tornado, some sort of whirlwind going on outside. And so now they plan to pass the night together in, They plan to pass the night together by reading. See? Reading is good. All right, we'll continue more on another one.